Hello and welcome to the Go Media Podcast. The Go Media Podcast is dedicated to tips, tricks, and tales of the business-minded artist and designer. It's our way of letting you inside of our studio to learn about the ups and downs we face here at Go Media and how we're dealing with them. This is episode number 19 and is a collection of sound clips from 2 Q&A sessions we did for the readers and new buyers of our new book, Drawn to Business. Those 2 Q&A sessions were recorded live in November and December of 2013. My name is Brian Garvin, and I'm a front-end developer here at Go Media. Unlike most episodes, Jeff Finley is not with us. Instead, you'll hear Bill Beachy's voice throughout, as he was the main focus of these 2 sessions. And you also hear my voice too. Before we begin, we don't have a sponsor for this episode. Instead, I'd like to just take a moment and thank you for giving some of your time each and every month to listen to this conversation, interact with us either in the live chat or in the comments on the site and on Facebook. It means a lot to know that we've created something that you enjoy. Hopefully you're finding some good takeaways from each episode to apply to your day-to-day business operations and design career. If you haven't reached out to us yet, please do so. You can find Go Media on Facebook, Google+, Twitter, or you can even email us at podcast@gomedia.us. Without any more delay, let's get right into it. Once again, what you're about to hear are clips we pulled together from the 2 Drawn to Business follow-up Q&A sessions we put out in November and December of 2013. The questions are unorganized and were provided by you, the readers of the book, in the live chat or by email. Also, some of the audio quality isn't consistent, so bear with us, enjoy it, and hopefully you take away some good things.
All right. Well, first, I just want to thank our customers, anyone that's purchased Drawn to Business or any of Go Media's products. We truly appreciate it. It's what keeps the lights on here at Go Media and gives us the opportunity to put these webinars on and write books and articles and everything else that leads to sharing our wonderful wisdom with you. So I guess I'll jump in on actually had a question that came in through email actually a little while before this webinar started, and I wanted to sort of walk through this email that I received and answer some of the questions. So I'm just going to read this email and then sort of dissect it bit by bit and answer the questions. I've really been considering uprooting my wife, 2 kids, and 15-year-old niece and going to Atlanta to start a small agency. I've been a quote-unquote real professional graphic designer for 20 years and have since learned web and then moved to videography, and I am ready to take some younger artists under my wing and start an agency. But I have to make money and have never needed contracts. Really, I need the contracts because I've had a lot of people never pay. Because I work with a lot of music-based artists as clients, it can get pretty grimy as far as the payments goes. They should treat me like they treat the studio they spend their money in to record the project that I help them promote through design, web, or video. So, addressing the concept of, first of all, this industry. When I got into design and started Go Media, we were working a lot in the same industry. We were working for entertainers, we were working in the music industry, we were working for bar owners, and I never really considered what type of client I was working with. I was really focused on just, I want to do design and, these are the particular people I want to work for. I want to work in this industry. So, my experience with that industry was the same as Travis's experience in that industry was. They weren't well organized. I got ripped off all the time. And I never really considered this as an industry issue, and I considered this just a business issue. I thought all industries were probably having this same type of, problem. So one thing that I recommend anyone that's thinking of starting a firm is you really have to identify who your market is, and you need to have a realistic perspective of what's your earning potential in that market, what is the common, customer personality type. Are they organized? Are they easy to work with? Are they particular about, the technical details, or do they want something that's really creative and artistic? How well are they going to pay you? And the music industry, like other niche industries that have a lot of people that are passionate about it, is filled with there's an oversaturation of people willing to do that work. And so you end up in a situation where it's just really hard to make a living in the music industry or in the film industry, because you've got so many designers out there that are willing to do that work for free or nearly free. They consider it just a passion project that, they'll design a t-shirt for a band, or they'll do a music video for a band at almost no costs. And it's also an industry full of dreamers and, people that are excited about promoting a rock band, but maybe they're not really good business people. So, there are inherent challenges in, building a company's business, building your design firm's, business around this market of the music industry. It's not to say that it can't be done. And I certainly don't want to trample on anyone's dreams of like, hey, I just want to design rock and roll t-shirts all day long, because Go Media spent 6 years really just focused on doing exactly that. But over the years, we just found that the challenges that it presented us in terms of getting payments, having people be responsible, giving us appropriate lead times, just all the business aspects that go along with doing a design project was an absolute nightmare working for the music industry. And so we slowly shifted out of that into more corporate markets. Travis also commented on contracts, needing contracts. In my experience, contracts are not worth the paper that they're printed on. If, anyone can fill out a piece of paper and sign it and give it to you, it might have a little influence over someone, but if someone's really such a dirtbag that they're going to not pay you or rip you off, they're not going to think twice about signing a contract that they have no, scruples about breaking. And a contract is only worth anything if you think you can go to court, take them to court, afford to take them to court, get a lawyer that's willing to spend the time and effort going to court with you to try and get money from them, and get a payout, and that person's going to pay. I've been through multiple court cases with clients, and at the end of the day, the lawyers and the judges will tell you that the court is not a collection agency. So what's actually going to happen is you'll win your court case, and it improves your odds of getting paid by, very little, almost none. You can win a court case, and the client that didn't pay you to begin with is going to kind of shrug his shoulders and go, so come get the money, It's very hard to extract money from someone that just doesn't want to pay you. And again, whether or not you're going to spend your time and energy going to court, or a lawyer is going to, you've got to be talking about really big dollar figures here. If it's less than $50,000 that you're going after, there's not a lot of lawyers out there that are going to want to spend their time chasing around some bar owner, some, rock band promoter, something like that. It's going to be really, really tough. Contracts are just tricky. We at Go Media combat this with billing policies. And the big difference there simply is we require deposits in advance. We require monthly payments, and we require final payments before any files are released. This basically forces the client to pay you before they ever get anything out of you. And when I switched from 30-day or 60 or 90-day billing, which I was doing out of the gate with my business and trusting that clients were going to pay me and getting ripped off constantly, over to a deposit-based, monthly billing-based system, it immediately weeded out everyone that was ripping me off. So that's my suggestion, is to start there. Force them to pay up front. And while it may feel a little tough, or it feels like you're going to lose a customer because you're forcing this system on them and you're saying you've got to pay me up front, those people that are going to make you feel bad about it and those people that are going to complain about it, those are the people that are going to rip you off. So when they go, that's not fair, nobody else does that, you go, great, go work for someone else. I'm happy to not charge you deposit and not work for you. So back to Travis's letter here. So he brings up the, fact that he wants to get this business going, and he's got all these people counting on him. He's got his family, potentially other graphic designers that he's going to bring into the fold. He's talking about moving to Atlanta. I mean, this is a lot. This is a lot. This is a lot that Travis is proposing here. I mean, I would be scared to death contemplating what he's talking about doing. I like to get some traction and get some proven business going, and take it in manageable steps and grow from there. As a starting point to help belay fears that he may have, I would highly recommend that he works up a business plan that would include extensive financials on exactly, what is the move going to cost? What is his new space going to cost? Does he have, office space that he's going to have to rent, sound recording space? What are the salaries that he's going to need to pay people? All of this stuff needs to figure out in advance. And then he needs to work through, what does he think the size of the market is? There is a lot to figure out here. This is a really tough industry. GoMedia actually has Bad Racket, which is a sound recording studio operating out of the first floor of our building, here in Cleveland. And, we had done some preliminary, budgeting for what it would take to build out a sound recording studio, what size of a market there is, how much money there is in that market. And it's tough. It's really, really, really tough. If you're going to make a leap like that, and I talk about this a lot in the book, you can get your business going wherever you're at, even if you've already got a day job. I would want to see some real client interaction, running some tests. I think that if he's going to go, Travis, I think if you're going to go to Atlanta and try and make this big shift, there's nothing in what you've described so far to me that stands out as, here's a really innovative, valuable, unique business proposition that you're making to your potential customers. If you're just saying, well, we're going to do audio recording and then we're going to support them with design work and I'm going to promote them, that's great. There's already companies out there that are doing all of that. So why is it that they're going to come to you versus someone else? You need to figure out some combination of tactics and approach and systems that are going to differentiate you either in a, promotional direction or a recording direction or some little niche, something that's just making you different, that gives you some distinct advantage over someone else in the industry that is going to, give you a viable shot at overcoming these competitors. It's like, because if you're just going to walk into a market and say, well, we're going to do the same thing other companies out there are doing, but we're just going to do it a little better, that's going to be tough. That's going to be pretty tough. And this is a challenge that all businesses are facing all the time. Most businesses that people are getting into, there's already competitors in that space. And, figuring out what your little niche is that's going to make your business stand out and be different and be more profitable. And I know that in your email here, you also ask about how do I attract investors? So if you work up all your financials and you're projecting certain things, investors in your business are going to want to see a really great return on their investment. So again, any smart investor is going to say, well, why are you different? Why is your business going to work where these other competitors, are, struggling or, basically you've got to have that distinct advantage in your business model. So think long and hard about that, because if you can come up with a truly unique and creative approach to the industry, I think you'll be able to attract investors, and you'll be able to return investment to them. So I see Travis mentions, so doing a one-stop shop, basically, branding, videos, audio, design. I think that's a good start. I'd like to see, how you present that to them, and I would carry it through. So I think that, the customer is going to need all those things, but I think that they need to see like how that carries on into the actual results then. What are the metrics that you can show, prove what you're doing is creating results that are going to help them. So, tracking their performance when the product actually gets out into the market space, partnering with distribution companies, figuring out how to rapidly get their product into, Amazon and iTunes and all those sort of good distribution channels. So, continue to evolve that idea and push that until you feel like you have just got this airtight solution where they're going to walk in the door at your place, get everything they need and get these wonderful results walking out the door. So Pete Merrick in the live chat says he is curious about the arsenal and how this has impacted our business. One, having access to so many resources, vectors, toots, etc. Has this dramatically increased your workflow efficiency? Two, in slow times when there isn't a lot of client commission work in the office, has the arsenal helped to keep the business running? And what percentage of your staff's time is spent on adding new content to the arsenal? So for those of you that have only gotten to know Go Media through the Drawn to Business platform, we started as a design firm, but then in around 2006, we actually developed a suite of design products, starting with vector packs, which we sold online as digital downloads to the design industry. And the initial impact on that with our business was huge. It was profound. It actually eclipsed our design services by a large margin. The building that we are in today, I can say, was financed by the Arsenal. For a long period of time, the vast majority of our staff was actually working on Arsenal products. We happened to jump into that industry at just the right time, and it went gangbusters for us. And, I think that is an example of us as treating our business from a very entrepreneurial perspective and experimenting frequently with how we can grow and improve the business. Take these risks, and a lot of them fail. We spend many hundreds of hours and tens of thousands of dollars on developing products that invariably fail, and we wasted all that time and all that money. And this is one that worked, and this is why we do those sorts of things, though we're trying to make smarter and smaller bets as we go. The marketplace has been absolutely flooded with competitors, and the Arsenal is a much smaller part of our business today than it was 3 or 4 years ago. So we have had to be agile and shift our focus back over to our design services, which are heavily outselling the Arsenal income this year. So while that was great, and while we're continuing to produce new products, such as this book, like in business, everyone's constantly battling to find ways to make money and grow their business. And if you find something that's hugely and wonderfully successful for you, great, ride that wave as long as you can. But you have to constantly be developing new products and new marketing and look for new people to sell to. Because competitors are going to flood anything that's working well. And we're dealing with that right now. That's a real challenge for us this year. Our sales in the Arsenal are off probably by about 30% this year. So that's something that we're dealing with. In terms of how those resources have made us more efficient, I just had a talk the other day with some of our internal designers. So we've got some junior level designers that have come onto the company recently, and I had to have a sit down conversation with them to discuss how their relationship should be with stock art. Obviously, we come from a place where everything was absolutely original. We created everything from scratch, but it's really not the most efficient way to work. And depending on what the customer's needs are and what their budget is, you have to make decisions about when you're using stock art as part of your design process and when you're creating everything from scratch. And my recommendation basically was the vision that you have for your design is paramount. If you think that you want to try and create something, then that vision is what you need to respect. So you can't think to yourself, well, I would love to have a scene where, a woman is doing this on a hillside or something like that. And then as you try and find a stock image for that, realize that you can't find that image. So you just start shifting your design away from your original vision to fit whatever imagery you can find online. That's an unreasonable use of stock graphics or photography. You have to protect the integrity of your vision for how the design is supposed to look and work. You need to try and find stock imagery or graphics that will fit that. And if you can't, then you need to create them. Because if you're just cutting corners every time you can't find something that you want, then the vision of what you were trying to create is destroyed and the impact is destroyed. So, we love it when customers give us a huge budget and we're allowed to do everything from scratch and, create the best possible work we can, perfectly in line with the vision we had. But as budgets get squeezed, then we jump into our arsenal of resources. And not only do we use our own arsenal, obviously, but, we're on iStock. We're on, Creative Marketplace and, other sites that have stock resources. We expect other designers to use our stuff. We use their stuff. It really all just comes down to delivering the vision that we've created. In slow times when there isn't enough client commission work in the office, has the arsenal helped to keep the business running? Absolutely. If you can develop some products that just sell residually, it really helps stabilize your income because there's a certain amount of cash that's going to be flowing in every single month. I highly recommend considering how you can create some balance between service-based business and product-based business. It's really helpful to have something that we can work on when we're slow. When we're slammed, great. Everyone's working on their design stuff. Get a little slow. Hey, we've got this list of things that we can work on that we can push out to that customer base and sell. But it's not a magic bullet. What percentage of your staff's time is spent on adding new content to the arsenal? It varies widely, honestly. There are times when there's only 2 or 3 people working on the arsenal, and there are times when, 3/4 of the staff might be working on something. We're also outsourcing a lot more, and actually, the Go Media Zine, the Arsenal V3 will be launching shortly, and that's going to be a marketplace where we're going to be publishing products from other designers. So that's going to be a really exciting evolution to the Go Media Zine. And I would also mention this. I really tried to focus on the design side of the business in my book because covering everything else that Go Media does is a huge topic. And there are plans to write a next book, which will go into further detail about other aspects of Go Media. Miss Lee in the live chat wrote, I know Go Media has posted a blog entry about how to land your dream design job, which was really informative, by the way. I wanted to know if you had any other input on this matter, such as how to really stand out to a company and how to approach situations where your dream companies aren't hiring at the moment, but you want to start building a relationship with them, what is considered appropriate / not appropriate. I heard sending custom pieces is a good way to stand out. What can you say about standing out in a resume? Thanks for your input. I feel really strongly about this. I get applicants practically every single day at GoMedia, and obviously we don't have jobs for all of them. I would say that first and foremost, you have to brand yourself and put together a beautiful resume and cover letter and have an online portfolio. It is amazing how many Word template resumes in Times New Roman I get from people. I actually really love it when someone gets creative and designs a whole package and sends it to me. And I love people that follow up and send emails and are diligent. To me, these are indicators of how they're going to be when they're actually employees for me. If they are, if they send off an email and I don't call them back, or write them back, then I know that they're not really fully invested in getting a job at GoMedia. I'll also have people that will apply and they'll go, I'm a videographer. I want to come work at GoMedia. It's like, we don't even do videography. It's so important that you do take the time to do the research, to find out about the company, and to try and build a relationship with whoever's going to be in a position to hire. So, connecting with them on LinkedIn, connecting with them through, a Behance or any other sort of platform that they might be on, checking in regularly with them, sending out a package. I mean, I think that you can be as outrageous as you possibly want to be. One of our employees, Carly, started as an intern, and when she applied, she sent this big canister to us. It had a poster in it. It had a little pot with a lima bean seed, and there was some note about sowing the seeds of knowledge working at GoMedia, and it was fantastic. And she came in, and what she sent us was a great indicator of how hard she worked and her sense of branding. And after her internship, we offered her a job, and she now works here. So, I say you just gotta be tenacious. You gotta just, pick those companies you want to work for and just hound them. I don't think stalking is a bad thing. Simon here? Simon is an employee here now. He's actually the Arsenal manager, and he was basically our number one fan. Anytime we posted anything, he was the very first person to comment on it instantly whenever we'd put it up. And we wanted that passion and that enthusiasm and that dedication for a staff member. So, we went out and recruited him from his own firm and convinced him to come work for us. So, I don't think you can go too far. I think you should just be, if someone tells you all right, enough's enough, we don't want to, get a restraining order on you, then back off a little. But short of that, yeah, be tenacious. Definitely check out the GoMedia podcast, episode 17, which you can find on the zine. We talked about this very topic, actually, and there's a lot of great advice on there as well. 5 Creative in the live chat wrote, speaking of the Arsenal and using it as residual income, what is your view on transforming a design firm into solely selling products and getting away from clients, like Mark Brickey, for instance? I think that there is tons of evidence that this is an absolutely fantastic way to take a design firm. A lot of companies are doing it, and they're being very successful with it. In fact, GoMedia has regularly had long conversations about this and debated about dropping the design side of our business. But you have to decide why you got into this. GoMedia still is passionate about creating cool designs. I still like, working with clients, figuring out business systems, recruiting and working with young designers that are working for national brands. We still just love the design side of our business, and we believe that the design side of our business complements the product side of our business, because invariably the lessons that we learn in running a design firm give us the content that we need to produce products. For instance, the book, right? I mean, if I didn't have to go through the rigors of building this design firm, then how would I know how to advise other designers how to build their design firm? If I wasn't dealing with challenges like, billing policies or internal project management systems or, financial software, if I wasn't having to actually in the real world make these things work, how could I possibly tell you, here's how to do it? Similarly, mock up everything, all the shirt mock-up templates, all of our Arsenal products, all of that stuff comes from us actually working every day and creating this stuff for our customers. So, that's why Go Media has decided to continue to sell design services. But it absolutely is a very viable option to get away from working for clients and just having products. I would also say this. When we first started selling products, we were so on the fish, if you will. We were blowing up so fast. It was making so much money for us that it felt very much like this is easy. Like, wow, this is a much easier way to run a company. Well, since competitors have flooded into this market space, it's become very difficult. And having a product-based business is not necessarily going to be easier. It's just going to be different. So this goes back to the question of passion. What are you really passionate about? Any business that you're going to get into is going to take a lot of hard work. So if you're really passionate about design, but you think, well, product design is going to be easy, so I'm going to go in that direction. When it gets hard, are you going to stick with it, or are you going to go back to where your passion is at, which is design? So, just make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. If you're, just doing it for, well, I think this will be an easier way to run, this will be easier on me, or I'll make more money, then I would think twice about it. Hello Shantytown wrote, question from a young startup biz point of view. Is it too overwhelming for clients when you are interested in offering everything? What I would like to do is try to make non-design / techie lives easier by working towards helping them with all forms of design / biz marketing. For instance, if they need a photographer, we'd help them find one and work with the photographer to help our client. But I've heard multiple points of view about having a niche and standing out and really focusing on, say, web, for instance. I would like to know your thoughts on this. This is a great question. And actually, I had created some notes for myself on things to talk about if nobody has questions, and this was my list. So specialization and providing, a particular niche, in my opinion, is absolutely the right way to go, particularly if you are small and just getting started. So I watch all these business shows, and on the Food Network, they have all these business shows where they're going in and fixing failing restaurants. And one of the number one things that they seem to encounter with every small restaurant that's failing is their menu has got too much stuff on it. You've got these 12-page menus. So the advisors come in and go, this is too much. We've got to get rid of all this. When they have so much stuff on their menu, they have to keep so much stuff in stock. The staff has to be able to produce all of these different dishes. Specializing really allows you to get efficient, to work really fast. And that's where your profitability comes in. Go Media used to offer design services where we would support every single content management system on the market and every single, gallery plugin on the market and every single everything on the market. And we found that we spent so much time having to learn these different technologies that we could never really be really fast and efficient, and we would burn a lot of time and waste a lot of our profitability on getting up to speed on these different technologies. There's a great book that I highly recommend everyone read. It's called Built to Sell, and it talks a lot about specializing. Not only do you get more efficient, but you actually are better at doing these very niche little things that you do. So your quality of work actually goes up. Another really important key is your marketing. When you've only got a few products that you offer, a few services that you offer, you can do a much better job targeting your market. So, for instance, TK is a gentleman that was emailing on on the website, and we had a little back and forth on this. And I use this little analogy, or this little anecdotal story. Imagine you've got a sorority girl, and she's needs a T-shirt printed, and she goes to Company A's website, and Company A's website says, we do photography, and we do design, and we do printing, and we do illustration, and we do, and it lists off all these different things. And then she goes to competitor B's website, and it says, we print T-shirts for sororities. Which company do you think she's going to pick to, hire? Absolutely, she's going to pick the company that seems like it's perfectly suited to her needs. So when you get specialized, when you've got a niche that you focus on, your conversion rate and your ability to sell your products is much higher. It really allows you to begin to automate where you find this specific demographic that are your customer, how you, create your campaign around that person, and, just to hone a very systematic way about finding those people, pitching them, selling them, and providing the service. It just creates this long line of efficiency that turns into profitability, where if you're just trying to do too many different things, you're just being pulled in all sorts of different directions. Now, you mentioned finding photographers for your customers. Yes, I think that having a list of resources to help them get all the bits and pieces they need is very helpful. So, GoMedia recognizes that sometimes clients come to us and they really want one person to provide a complete solution. So we want you to do the photography and the copywriting and the design and the media buy and push this campaign live. And some companies will absolutely be looking for that. And in order to fill that gap, we work with Kelly Greenweb. They're sort of a central hub. They help pull all these resources together, put together the general strategy, and execute the whole thing, where GoMedia can focus on the design, Muse Content Group can do copywriting, Dan Morgan can do photography, Coleman Wick can do market research. We have sort of created this sort of web where we can deliver that, but you have to be very cognizant of where you're spending your time. You can easily spend hundreds of hours, doing stuff like, getting specs and ordering printing for your clients, directing photo shoots. You've got to make sure that you're being compensated for all that sort of stuff. So you got to be protective of your time and understand what you're the best at, particularly when you're getting started. And actually, in the book, almost all of the people that contributed to the book, all the different design firm owners, across the board, they all talked about this. They all talked about specializing. They all talked about picking a focus and really owning that, through and through. So, this is absolutely critical. Pick something to become the very best at and just own it 100%. Regarding the business strategy spreadsheets, do you separate the metrics into different spreadsheets or combined? Would you do better? Would it be better to calculate it weekly, monthly, or quarterly? So at GoMedia, we have dashboards. So we have dashboard spreadsheets. I'm assuming you're talking about metrics, company metrics, for instance. So, for instance, getting very granular, we ask our designers to fill out a metrics sheet every single month where they're filling in how many total hours they logged, how many of those hours were billable, how many of those hours were non-billable, how many projects they completed, what percentage of those projects would be considered portfolio quality, and what their overall state of mind is, whether they're relaxed, average, or stressed out. And we have metrics for every component of our business. For the Arsenal, for Mock Up Everything and Sure Mock Up, for WMC Fest, and, project management. It's very important that you build a base of metrics, so measurable items about your company that you can log on. We do it on a monthly basis. We review those on a monthly basis, so that you can track the overall, what's working, what's not working. If you don't have information, you can't make decisions about how to take your company. And, for most of the first 10 years of GoMedia, we were doing very emotional decision making. We were guessing at, how the company was going and what was working and what wasn't working. And really, it's only in the past couple of years that we've realized how important metrics, projections, and tracking is. So, we do financial projections now every single month. We review all of our financials. We go into QuickBooks and run reports on every single expense category. We've got, 3 or 4 different verticals that are, cash generators for us. We project all of this stuff out. And we regularly review those metrics. So, we'll sit down with, say, Sarah and I, our project manager, and I are constantly having a little exchange about, are these metrics giving you good information about how well these projects are flowing? Do we need to come up with different metrics? Should we get rid of some of these metrics? Imagine driving a car without a dashboard. Imagine not having a speedometer and a thermometer and an odometer and, emergency lights that come on if your, engine is failing, or, you don't have your seatbelt buckled, or whatever it is. Your business needs the same thing. It needs, you need information that you can review on a monthly basis that's going to tell you how fast you're going, what's your burn rate, and so we've included a lot of this in the supplemental materials, the sort of metrics that GoMedia track on a monthly basis, and it really has transformed our ability to make intelligent decisions about how we change the company and grow in different directions and plan for the future. I mean, the major downturn that we've had this year with the Arsenal, as that unfolded, I was able to go through month by month and update the financial projections we had for the Arsenal, and that gave me a better understanding of what our burn rate was going to be, so that I could say, maybe we better not spend this money that we had earmarked for next month for some new piece of equipment, because I can see that the Arsenal is, producing X dollars less every month. So we have to be prepared that we're not going to have that cash next month, so we can't afford that new piece of equipment. So when you do metrics properly and you get it rolling and you start projecting out, it's amazing the sense of confidence and calm that you get in your business on a month-to-month basis, because you know what's going to happen. You begin to understand how your business works, what the levers are, and what you need to do to make it more successful. Besides examples of metrics, we've included a handful of examples for writing better emails, invoices, and proposals in our Plus and Pro packages of the book. So if you just bought the book or you're thinking about, definitely check those packages out, as they include a lot of great additional resources. So back to your answer on never sacrificing your vision of the design. It seems as designers, we pound our heads to the complete vision. Does the price tag on the job increase if you just can't find that specific image in your repositories, and you resort to getting what the customers / your vision? In other words, time is money. How does GoMedia account for this? This is a great challenge to all designers. We're all dealing with this on a daily basis. We try and have conversations with our clients early and often. we talk money extremely early on. I like to talk money before I even, first conversation with a client when they call us about a project, I'm having to ask them, hey, where's your budget at? And so that being a starting point, it allows us to create realistic perspectives, realistic expectations about what we're going to be able to produce for them. So, right out of the gate, if we know that they're extremely budget, conscious, then I'm going to show them exactly what's feasible for that budget. And if you work it through from that end first, and you go, well, we're going to use stock photography, and here's going to be our approach, and this is about the quality of image we're going to be able to get. We're not going to be able to draw anything from scratch, et cetera, et cetera. You've got to get that client to sign on. And then our design process at Go Media is very, incremental. There's lots of little steps to it so that we're getting approval as we work through the entire process. So that frequently starts with written concepts and a mood board or a style board. And that gives them an expectation of what they're going to get. And then it might go into a pencil sketch or a rough computer render, So we're being very strategic and efficient about the way we go through the design process so that it's not like we're halfway down the line and, there's a big curveball that we end up having to deal with. There was a project recently where the client themselves realized that the vision wasn't being executed how I'm trying to remember what the exact situation was. So we had a client that, they basically shifted the vision halfway through the project. And in a situation like that, we basically had to tell them, well, if we're scrapping this and we're starting new, this is completely off scope. And then the dollar figures had to be just, pushed back on them. They were going to have to pay us to basically rebuild the entire project, which they agreed to do, thankfully, and we rebuilt it. So, Also, I would say this about the concept of not sacrificing your vision. We definitely do also, at times, eat money in order to fulfill the vision that we've got. If we're really excited about a project and we really want something to be amazing and we think that's going to go into the portfolio, then we will absolutely eat hours and do what we have to do. I know that a lot of times I'll do that. I'll overspend on some really great photography or spend an extra amount of money on some great fonts because I know that I want to deliver just the most awesome possible design to the client, and I'm willing to sacrifice some money. And that's not necessarily the most profitable for us, but at the end of the day, this gets back to why we got into this in the first place, that we're passionate, that we love making great design. And if I take that away from myself, I'm basically gutting myself as an artist and designer. If I take that ability away if I take away my ability to put in some of my own personal time to do something awesome, then I don't even want to be doing this. I don't want to be in the business. So. Thanks to Joe Barron Design for that question and the follow-up by MX. Sandra writes, I want to start my own business, and I really want to be able to integrate a charity or charities into my business model. Do you have any tips for that? Or do you know of any resources that can help me with that? I think it's fantastic to have a vision for your business that includes charity. I actually question a lot of times, why is Go Media here? What is this all about? Am I going to feel fulfilled if at the end of my life I'm on my deathbed and I think to myself, well, I made a lot of logos, I made a lot of websites, and I made a lot of money. And the answer is no, I really probably would not feel very fulfilled. It's one reason why we do things like throw WMC Fest. Even though it is an incredible outlay of energy and money, and it is challenging at times to, run this company because we're doing things that we consider, that we have a vision beyond just being a design firm. We have to do it. We have to do it because this is what life is all about. We like to say that we change lives. In fact, while Drawn to Business is a business and we're trying to make money with it, we're also trying to change lives. And this is a core vision that, the partners have at Go Media, that we're doing more than just running a company. And I think that story lends itself well to being able to sell your services. I know that there are a lot of design firms out there that specialize in nonprofits and that they're very successful. And I think that they look for design firms that have that sort of vision and that sort of plan. Certainly, if you're going to tie your design firm to a charity, then you certainly should consider building your design firm as a nonprofit. That will give you great tax advantages. There's a little bit more oversight, so there's going to be a little bit more accounting fees that you're going to have to deal with. But I think that's a real viable business model. Be a nonprofit, work for nonprofits, and do great design work. I would certainly talk through, this business model with a lawyer and with your accountant. Beyond that, I don't have a ton of advice on that, but I think it's great that you have that, and I think if that's what you're passionate about, then I would absolutely do that. Kelly asks, can you talk about adding sales staff to your firm and how it has evolved over time, how their roles play out in your company, any advice on what to do when hiring sales staff for a graphic design firm? Okay, this is huge. Having someone on your company, whether it's you as the owner or a full-time sales staff person, to focus on selling all the time is absolutely critical to building a thriving design firm. For years, that was me, Wilson, Jeff, eventually a project manager. One problem that we faced with our sales team was that we also all had other jobs in the company, and they typically were all jobs that needed to be taken care of when we got busy. So we had what I refer to as a chug-chug effect. Basically, when we were slow, we had time to sell, so I'd go out and sell. And when we got busy, we'd all start designing and we'd stop selling. So when we stopped selling, the design work would slow down. We would then go out and sell some more. We'd get busy, we'd stop selling, and it would just go back and forth. And we never got this good flow and rhythm going because nobody was ever focused on selling 24/7. Second mistake I made was, and we tried to build a sales team many times, and my first thought on building the sales team was, I'm going to bring them in, I'm going to let them go out and sell. I expected them to go out and generate their own leads, go out and sell their own stuff, and get a sales commission. And we had multiple salespeople that came through and they crapped out. They failed. They didn't, they weren't successful. And that was because I wasn't supporting them. I wasn't teaching them what I knew. I wasn't going out on sales calls with them. I really put them on an island and said, do it. And that was the wrong approach. I realize that now. I failed miserably at that. Today, the reason why I had done that was because I felt like, well, I can sell. If someone calls me, I can go sell them. Why should I give that lead to a salesperson? I know I can sell it. Why pay a commission for someone else to sell something that I can sell? And that was a lead that we had generated, so why give that money up? It just sort of didn't make sense to me. That was my logic. But what I wasn't realizing or, appreciating was that I didn't have time to support that relationship with that client. I could go out and sell it, but then guess what? I was busy working, designing, selling the next project. I didn't have the time and energy. Selling was not my focus. I wasn't following up. I wasn't upselling. I wasn't doing all these things to take that client and build a long-term relationship with them. And that's what a dedicated salesperson will allow you to do. So while I thought I was saving a commission by selling my own leads, I was losing all of the efforts that a full-time salesperson would bring to that relationship. So today, all of the leads that we get go to my sales team. And I support them now by answering questions, teaching them how I sell, going out on sales calls. I will do everything, every part of the sales process for them until they learn how to do it themselves, and pay them a commission. That's a part of their learning process, is they've got to get paid while they're working, and they're learning from me. And so I want to teach them, soup to nuts, how to sell and sell my way, because, I've developed a lot of knowledge and particular approach to how I sell. So I want them to learn, the Go Media way of selling. And then they're going to have that client, they're going to have the time and energy to support that relationship, follow up, check in, upsell, et cetera, et cetera. So yes, you should absolutely be bringing on a sales staff. I think that's huge. I think that if you're, 7 people or less, I think one salesperson for 7 people is an appropriate number. I have read that having 2 salespeople, good salespeople, are typically competitive. So as soon as you can get 2 on board, I think that's smart, because they're going to compete with each other. They're a huge part of our company now. I couldn't imagine running Go Media without the sales team chasing down leads and landing work for us. And we really have to protect their time too, because it's very easy for a sales team member to get sucked into other things like marketing or project managing, or, I will say this. We are in the process of building a new position. We call it an account manager. And the difference between an account manager and a salesperson is that an account manager is also going to work as the project manager. So one thing that we've realized is, once a salesperson has sold a project and hands it off to our project manager, the relationship lives more so between the project manager and the client than it does the salesperson and the client, because the project manager is with that client through the entire design process. And so when a client has questions, or when there are opportunities that, spring up about, a good upsell opportunity, they're typically talking to the project manager and not the salesperson anymore, because that's who they're having this ongoing relationship with as the project is completed. So our new model that we're testing right now is a person that sells the client first and then works as the project manager with them through their entire project. Another nice thing about this model is that it allows you to scale perfectly the bandwidth of project management and sales that you would require. And as it works out, it takes about the same amount of time to sell as it does to project manage. So if you can sell $10,000 worth of design services in a month, you can probably project manage about $10,000 worth of services in a month. So they're pretty close to 50-50 in terms of the resources required. So instead of having to hire on a project manager and separately hire on a salesperson simultaneously, you can hire on one person, which keeps your overhead down, and it's just going to make it easier to scale that because you're hiring on one person at a time versus hiring on 2 people at a time. Follow-up. Felix, I'm a one-man shop and don't have the resources or time to go get interns or hire salespeople, as I am swamped with client projects. What advice do you have to redirect the vision and focus on leveraging my company? So how do you go from one person to being big enough that you can afford to have an intern? Have an intern or have another employee? If you're a one-person designer, if you're planning on building a firm, you're going to need to start to learn all the things that it's going to take to build a company. So going out, generating leads, selling a project, and then doing the work are all things that you're going to have to do. So you're going to have to start that. The way, or the thing that's going to give you the ability to begin to transition or grow is getting your pricing model right. If you exert, some set number of hours in acquiring a customer and delivering their final design project, and you find that the money you have left over after that process is just enough to cover your own bills, then you're not you haven't yet found the right customer that you can charge the appropriate amount of money. So I worked for many years like this where I could just pretty much afford to pay for myself. I would live so frugally that I would save up some money and then I would hire someone. But because my clients weren't right and because my price points weren't right, once I hired someone, I was literally paying them out more than they were generating in revenue for me. So I would work super hard, live incredibly frugally, save up some money, hire someone, and then slowly watch my bank account shrink down to zero until I had to fire that person and go back to what I was doing, which was working really hard, being really frugal, and saving up money. And I went through this cycle at least 3 times where I would hire on some people, watch my money dwindle to nothing, and fire them. And invariably what the problem was is that I wasn't charging enough. I didn't have enough profit margin. And getting that profit margin is a combination of you knowing what to charge and finding customers that are willing to spend that amount. Once you get that right, what you'll find is you just working on your own as a freelancer are generating enough money that you're stockpiling cash, lots of cash. And that's when you're going to go, now I can afford to hire someone. Now I've got the money to bring someone else in. And then they start doing that work that helps fill in that gap and start to do some of those other things. And that's where the growth then begins and where you start to get more and more people. But yeah, I mean, that's it at its beginning point is you got to get your business to a point where you're generating a surplus of revenue. Only then can you start to grow. What about hiring a salesperson to work on commission in case you can't pay them a salary? Good idea or bad idea? Fantastic idea. GoMedia's entire sales team is paid based on commissions. It's going to be hard out of the gate if you don't already have good leads and a good business running so that you can say, hey, I've got leads for you to go close. You're going to be able to sell. You're going to be able to make commissions and make a living. I have frequently had to supplement my sales team's income with basically I treated them like prepayments. So I would go ahead and start paying them, but I would tell them that basically I'm keeping track of what I'm paying you, and then when you start selling, what I've paid you in advance is going to come out of your commissions. That allows me to recoup the money over time, and I did that with our current sales staff, and we've now reached a point where they're selling enough that they're self-sustaining. But yes, absolutely, commission-based salespeople, is absolutely the way to go. It gives them incentive, and it takes away any sort of ceiling. So, any salesperson is going to want to come in and dream about landing that $1 million project and getting $150,000 commission on it. So, yeah, absolutely. That's the direction that we took. How do you feel about account executives doing double duty and being salespeople also? Account executives double doing and sales and being salespeople too. Account executives, in my mind, are salespeople. I guess I need some clarification on that. John wrote this question. John, are you out there? Can you clarify?
It's going to take a minute.
If he's wondering about account managers that I mentioned earlier, about doing project management and sales, I think there's going to be a longer learning curve because, perfecting your job as a project manager, there's a lot to learn there. Perfecting your job as a, salesperson, there's a lot to learn there. So, there's a longer learning curve, but I don't necessarily think that being a project manager is going to hurt your ability to be a good salesperson. You're going to need to find the right sort of person. I mean, finding good quality employees that can be good salespeople. I mean, one of our sales girls here will repeatedly say to me, I'm not a project manager. Good. It's good to know that. I'm not going to try and make you a project manager. Some project managers may not be good salespeople. Finding someone that can do both might be tough. But if you can find it, that's something that we're experimenting with right now, and hopefully that'll be successful. Joe Mola Jonas, John, You may address this in the book, but what are your thoughts on starting an agency without first having a client? Sometimes I just want to dive in. Guess what? Keep your day job. And if you keep your day job, you can jump in. You can start you're gonna, no matter what you start, you're gonna start with no clients. But if you're asking, should I quit my day job and start the firm without any clients? Absolutely, positively not. There's so much work you can do in getting your firm up and running prior to quitting your day job. Design your company brand, get your website up, get all your copywriting done, get your marketing materials together, put together a business plan, put together financial projections. You can do all of this in your time after work. And then literally go out and start marketing. I think that a challenge you should present to yourself is having your boss come to you and saying, hey, John, I've been seeing your marketing all over town for your new agency. You're fired. That would be a good way to get let go of your current position, is that you're doing so much work and getting so much exposure and starting to get clients that your boss discovers it in that way and is forced to ask you to leave. Otherwise, and again, this is something that all the other firms that I interviewed echoed, is do not quit your day job until you're absolutely forced out of that job because you have so much work to do that you just simply can't, can't get any sleep because you've got too much to do. Only then should you quit your day job. The Art of MX and Felix had similar questions. As a former business owner and now full-time designer, you're always learning. It seems many of the small businesses I've worked for never stress education. Software changes, code changes, business practice changes. Keeping your head above water is a must. How does Go Media add education into the workflow? How do you stress it among your staff? That's a great question. I think that inherently Go Media's owners have a growth mindset. That is to say that we're constantly experimenting with new technologies and new things. Sometimes it feels like we're doing too much. I think I talked about this earlier about, we're so entrepreneurial that we're always trying new things. And I think that just our attitudes and wanting to do those new things and presenting those challenges to our staff or tackling those ourselves creates a bit of a culture here at Go Media to try things and learn new things. And I straight up will tell the staff, if you need to spend half an hour, go online, study up on how to do something better, do it, So we're doing it as owners. We're encouraging it. When finances are better, we have historically given some sort of credit towards going to a convention or, some sort of continuing education. I know that, to reference Sarah with who's our project manager, she came to us and said she wanted to get her project manager's certificate. We told her that, when we can afford it, we would pay to do that. I think a lot of small business owners are not in the growth mindset. They're not thinking about how to improve their business. They're basically grinding a paycheck out of their company. And I think that over the long term, that leads to failure as a business. But that's how a lot of people are. They're just trying to keep the lights on. And there's always a balance that must be maintained. You can't just open up the coffers and spend a fortune on education and not pay attention to what your overhead is and how you're going to pay your bills every single month. So, certainly when we're doing better and we've got a little extra cash, then, we'll be in a better position to encourage people to go out and learn and educate. And we're always weighing the pros and cons of updating, new computers, new software. I mean, I always want the company to be on the latest, greatest of everything. But again, there has to be a balance had. It's very expensive to update all the software. It's very expensive to buy new computers. So when things are going real well, we pick away at it. But I think that our growth mindset really drives us to do that stuff more often than, someone that's just in a treading water, just, working to make a living. So we just do that naturally. We've always done that. And the other thing I guess I would say along those lines is GoMedia, encourage, well, we don't encourage failure. We don't beat people up over trying things. I'm always telling people, I'm never going to get mad if you try something, take a stab at something. Try and make something happen. If you fail, I'm only going to, just say, hey, how do we fix this in the future? Or maybe we don't do that again. Or, it's not a bad thing to, try and fail, basically. And I think that having a supportive atmosphere like that and making people feel like they're allowed to take risks and it might not work out, but I'm not going to get in trouble over it, helps them with staying in sort of the growth mindset as well. Torben Winter writes, how do you present first concepts to clients? My superiors don't want to show sketches to clients, not even wireframes for websites. Instead, they spend a lot of time on computer graphics in the planning phase. I find that to be a very stupid approach because it's important time that could be used for actual production. I agree with you, Torben. At GoMedia, we absolutely do sketches. We do mood boards. Then we do wireframes. Only then, when we've got a really solid understanding of what content goes on our web pages, where it's generally located, what the priority is, what the general size is, what is the call to action, and only then, when we've got all of those things figured out, do we start doing graphics. It does, I think, take a little bit of education that customers need to be walked through the process and have an appreciation for the initial steps, because a lot of clients want to gloss over those sitemaps and those wireframes because it doesn't look like what they're hoping to get as an end product. And I need to stress to them that, pay attention to this sitemap that we're typing up. It's only written words, but, if you decide you want to move content from page A to page B in the sitemap, that's as easy as copy paste. But if we've gone all the way to the place where we're doing, work, like designs, like Photoshop documents, and you go, you know what? I don't like that content on that page. Let's move it somewhere else. Well, that's a lot of work that we put into designing something and designing where that content was going to be on the page. And now we've got to break that page and figure out what fills in that hole, find a new spot for this content. So, I'll also make sure that they're aware that this process is going to be the cheapest for them. We're going to save the most amount of time and be the most efficient if we approach it in this linear, step-by-step, small bets, design process. So I don't know what the thinking is for your bosses, Torben, but I agree. I think it's a stupid approach. I'm going to probably pronounce Tom's name wrong. Tom Zority. Tom Zority. When it comes to finding the appropriate systems to charge customers, do you try to keep the original customers that were paying less, or do you have to cut them? I'm guessing that this is a question about pricing, like when you increase your prices. Of course we try and hold on to all of our customers. In the past, the approach we've taken is, as we onboard new customers, we give them the new rates. And at some point, if there are customers that we're just not being profitable enough on, we will basically write them a letter, and we keep it pretty short, but it basically says, due to overhead and increasing costs to run our firm, we've, had to raise our rates, and here are the new rates. We truly appreciate your business. We hope that you will stay a customer of ours. And, that's basically the approach we take. Some of our better customers are on a lower price point, we find that customers that pay well and that are very efficient to work with, that will give them a lower price point. So there may be some of those, historic customers that we will honor a lower rate for them. But at some point, if you're just so busy that you can't afford to service your new higher paying customers and your lower paying older customers, who are you going to let go? Obviously, you're going to have to let go of those lower paying customers. Cruiseman Design writes, Bill, can you share the structure of your agency, i.e. staff structure, workflow processes? I'm sure GoMedia's structure is unique, but it would be great to get your perspective on why it is structured the GoMedia way. Thanks. Sure. So GoMedia has 3 partners, myself, Wilson Ravel, and Jeff Finley. My focus is on business systems, sales, business development, and this past year I actually stopped designing because I was finding that my ability to best run the company was sacrificed when I was spending a lot of time designing. So it was more important that I was going around making sure people were doing the things they should be doing, investing more time in going out networking, building relationships, selling, etc. And that was a tough decision for me to give up designing, but I believe it was the right thing to do. Wilson. So Wilson is our Chief Technical Officer and Vice President, and he is a day-to-day developer. So he's working every single day building out websites, and he is really he spearheads all of our new technology, basically. He's the one diving into new platforms and learning new things and, figuring out how to, what are the next steps for GoMedia in terms of coding and technology, and he's on the ground working every single day on that. So very much a working partner. Jeff helps manage the arsenal and is also sort of our head, PR machine, if you will. He's the one that is behind a lot of GoMedia events, marketing products. Jeff is the mastermind behind, everything that relates to this book other than having written it. He's the guy behind the website, the content on the website, and the marketing campaigns, and does a lot of social media stuff. So we've got the 3 partners, and I feel very lucky because I feel like there's a great balance between us because I love the financials. I love the business side. I love the business development stuff. Wilson really loves the technology side of things. I couldn't imagine where GoMedia would be at without Wilson driving the web development side of our company. And neither of us have a knack for, marketing or, social media or, building community or, throwing WMC Fest. These are all things that Jeff does that we don't have. I'm going to sort of mentally walk my way through the company. Jenny, Lauren, and Sandra are our sales team. Jenny also does strategy and does PR stuff. Lauren is pretty much only sales, and Sandra is sales and project management. She's sort of the new account manager that I spoke about. I actually feel like that is a bit of an overkill for a sales team right now. We've got more sales team than we do have supporting staff to fill what they can sell. So I am anticipating growth over the next year to 2 years. I can see us adding several new designers to the staff in order to fill their capacity in terms of what they can sell. We have one full-time project manager, Sarah, who totally rocks, and that's all she does is project manage. And her capacity is, we've pushed her capacity this year. So I think any further growth is going to require more project managers, but that's why Sandra is sort of a hybrid salesperson project manager. So we'll see sort of how that works. We have 2 junior level designers that all they do is design. And this is mostly just branding, print design, and front end web development or front end design. So that is Aaron and Carly. We have 1 senior designer, Chris Comella, who also does branding, print design, and front-end web design. In a pinch, I can jump in on design, but that's basically our design team right now is just those 3 people. We also outsource periodically, but, 3 people full-time, and then me jumping in here and there when needed. But I definitely feel like we're understaffed in terms of designers right now. We definitely have a lot of work for them. We then have Brian Garvin, who is here produces the podcast, and is sort of our number one front-end developer. So he takes all the great Photoshop designs and turns them into actual HTML. Dave is our number one back-end developer. So, he really helps build the code base that powers all of our web solutions. So Wilson, Brian, and Dave are sort of the dev teams. You've got, 3 front-end designers and 3 back-end developers that are sort of working together to do a lot of web development. And web development is huge with GoMedia. I would say 80% of the design work we do is all web development. We have Kim. We have one person that is basically our bookkeeper and support staff. So Kim does customer service. She does a lot of mailing stuff. She does a lot of nicks and knacks, and she does all of our bookkeeping, which is a lot of work, pays all of our bills. Simon is the Arsenal manager, so he focuses on developing new products, building relationships, developing the new Arsenal store, putting together the marketing materials, driving the marketing campaigns around our products, connecting with companies that are putting together bundles and stuff like that, selling in bulk to companies that are reselling our work, all that sort of good stuff. Who am I leaving out? Oh, Heather Sakai. Heather is our social media manager, so she basically is the one that's driving the GoMedia zine. She's basically the driving force behind almost all the articles and stuff that go up onto the GoMedia zine, whether she's just, managing the staff and getting those done or reaching out to people and getting those. She's, the driving force behind Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, all those things. She's working, I would say that 80% of her time is just driving our social media to keep the community and, drive sales and stuff. And, she also runs Mockup Everything and Shirt Mockup. So she's getting new templates put in and promoting those products. And I think that's it. Am I leaving anyone out? Seems like I covered everyone. So that's GoMedia staff. And yeah, we're definitely a weird hybrid sort of a company. We've got a lot going on. It's probably not a classic structure. I do have atypical staff breakdown in the book that sort of is like, here's, once I added up all the different firms that I interviewed, their staff demographics, I broke down and sort of said, here's sort of what an atypical design firm's breakdown looks like. Rob Perry Design wrote, I've been working for a company as a full-time web graphic designer for 10 years and as a freelancer for a few years now. I continue to learn and grow on my own each year. Do you feel there are drawbacks to running a full-time freelance business versus running a firm? Drawbacks to running a full-time freelance business versus running a firm. I would say this. I guess the question is being a full-time freelancer versus building a firm. I talk about this really early in the book. If you want to build a firm, you're building a business, and invariably, if it grows, if it's successful, and this is kind of one of those, it's good but it's bad sort of things. If you're successful in building a firm, then what's invariably going to happen is you're not going to be designing anymore because your firm's going to grow, and it's going to require your time in running the business. And that's exactly what's happened to me. So I would ask yourself really what you want to do. I mean, do you want to be a designer? If you want to be a designer, then being a freelancer or having just a couple of people and being a very small firm is sort of the way to go. That will allow you to continue to design and get some of the benefits of, working for yourself. But I love building business. I think it's in my nature. I think it's in my, just who I am. So, building Go Media it just happened sort of naturally for me. Like, if I had some extra money, I didn't, I just poured it back into the business. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but hopefully. S. Kraus Art. What kind of things do you look for in a designer? Aside from the drive and the tenacity that you spoke of earlier, are there any specific types of pieces that you want to see in a portfolio? Yes, absolutely. I want to see in your portfolio the same types of products that my company sells. So I think if you're going to apply somewhere, do some time, research the type of work they do, and make sure that you've covered the major categories of things they do. So if they do branding, print design, and web development, such as Go Media, I want to see branding. I want to see marks, logo types, color schemes. If they do print design, I want to see brochures. I want to see postcards. I want to see posters. And if they do web development, I want to see, mock-ups of websites. The other thing that's very important is I want to see a variety of styles. We have a lot of different customers that come to us with different needs, and I need my designers to be as versatile as possible. So we have students that come in, and, it's a young guy, and he loves rock and roll, and he loves Monster Energy beverage, and he is going to come to us with this portfolio where every single piece looks like it's out of a Red Bull commercial or, out of a motocross, event. And that's great if we had, a full breadth of customers that were all, Red Bull or Monster Energy beverage or, MTV or whatever. But that's not the case. So I would challenge anyone that's working on their portfolio and find themselves producing stuff that looks similar. Get out of your comfort zone. If you're a guy that's into rock and roll, I would say, I want you to design a brand and a store for what if Hello Kitty had a cupcake shop? What would that branding and what would that cupcake shop's marketing materials and packaging look like? Conversely, if all of your stuff looks feminine and very pastel-y, I'd say, imagine that there is a motocross event sponsored by Monster Energy, and you need to come up with a marketing campaign for it. What's that going to look like? What would your design look like if you were marketing to an 18-year-old male demographic? You need to show that breadth of work, both in style and in content. And I'm also looking for personality. Personality is something that I look for more and more now than ever before. In order to even get an interview with Go Media, you're going to have a fantastic portfolio. I mean, that is just a given. If you don't have that, then I really can't waste my time even interviewing anyone. But secondarily, and almost once you've gotten past that, your portfolio is good enough stage, is personality. I really want to see someone that, on one hand, has checked their ego at the door so that, their design is not necessarily, their life where they're going to be crushed if I give them some negative feedback. That they're there to learn, that they're there to work hard, that they have a positive attitude. Employees that are negative and have, negative attitudes, they're disastrous to the company. One bad employee can absolutely destroy the atmosphere of an entire office of 15 people. So I look out, I'm very careful about that these days. I need to see people that are positive, that have got a good outlook on life, that, aren't depressed all the time and that aren't overly sensitive about getting feedback. Hardworking, obviously. So personality, great work, and great work ethic. Peter Del Tondo, When you pay commissions to your sales staff, does that commission carry through all future work with that client? How do you decide on a commission per project commission or percentage of project total? So the commission structure is percentage, and it is ongoing for the life of that customer. So a salesperson might have to spend a long time and a lot of energy landing a new client, and they'll get a percentage on that first order. 3 months later, that client might call my salesperson and order something of equally large value, and the salesperson might not have to spend almost any time on it at all, and they're still going to get that same percentage on that sale. Here's what this perspective you need to have. The salesperson's job is to maintain that relationship, and that's their only form of income. If you only pay them a commission on an original sale and then take away their ability to get residual sales to that customer, you're going to be undermining their incentive to continue to maintain that relationship and sell that customer. That commission is their income. So, paying an ongoing commission incentivizes them to sell as much as possible, and it gives them that incentive to be a salesperson and to work under the commission-based system. If you take away their ability to quickly turn profits through reselling existing customers, then you're really undermining their long-term ability to make a ton of money and be happy about being a salesperson. And quite frankly, at the end of the day, it shouldn't really matter to you, because you just need to treat your sales team as an ongoing expense. And whether it's a first sale or a third sale, and whether the salesperson spent 5 years working on the sale or 5 minutes working on the sale, who cares? At the end of the day, you're still getting the same amount of money and you're still paying the same commission. So, that's money in the door for you. So, trust me, I did consider that whole concept for a while. You sell it the first time around, you get your commission, then there are customers, so then they're just reordering, so why am I going to pay you a commission? Well, I need to give you the money so you can afford to spend the time going out and finding that next customer. So yes, I hope that answers your question. Commission-based, based on total cost of the project. I would also say this, just to help fill in the holes for this sales team. The sales team gets paid their commissions in kind with the payments we receive. So if they sell a $100,000 project and their commission rate is 10% hypothetically, and the customer pays a $10,000 deposit, the sales team is not going to get $10,000, because $10,000 would be the commission on the full project, the $100,000. The sales team gets their commission in kind with the payments we receive. So if the deposit's $10,000, they're going to get 10% of that $10,000, which is $1,000. So over the course of that project, as we get our payments, the sales team is getting their payments. That way we're never prepaying the sales team, because you never know, a project could reach the $50,000 point and disappear. That happens all the time. Customers, for whatever reason, just, bail on a project. They decide they don't want to go through with it. Their company goes under, whatever the case may be. So we can't afford to prepay commissions to our sales team. So, but it also makes their commissions smooth, because there's always these ongoing projects that are always receiving payments, and invariably, they might have a slow month in terms of originating new sales, but there's all these projects that are ongoing, so they're going to continue to get those commissions as they roll out. Hello, Shantytown wrote, based on what you're saying about the client relationship with a specific individual in the company and feeling comfortable going to that person when they have a question or an update, how do you go about your team communication? If the designer isn't talking directly to the client, who is responsible for making sure the whole company understands what the client wants, so that the designer or photography or illustrator doesn't dive into the project blind? So this is all handled through our design process. And do we include our design process in the Pro package? I'm trying to remember. So GoMedia has an incredibly detailed design process diagram that walks our own staff, the clients, through our process step by step. So the sales team, once they've landed a project, they have a handoff meeting where the project manager is brought in and brought up to speed with the specs on the project, expectations of the project, etc. We then have a kickoff meeting where the project manager, salesperson, and all the designers on the project come together in one big meeting with the client and discuss all of the parameters of the project, the hopes for the design, the direction. The design team gets to put their input in terms of, aesthetic direction, etc. And then, as I mentioned before, the project then unfolds over a course of time in a series of small steps so that the client is giving us approval on everything from what we think the concept should be to a mood board, to sketches, to rough, just computer renders. And as we go through this process, as a client decides what they want to do, from the design team that's working on it, one designer will emerge as the art director. So some firms have art directors that they assign at the very beginning, and that person sort of is pushing the art direction all the way through. At GoMedia, we like to assign multiple designers to the project, and as the client decides on a direction, that designer then emerges as the art director, and then they will drive the vision from that point forward. The other designers that were on the project will then become, they will then work underneath that designer. So it's not like the design staff itself has a strong architecture when it comes to how a project unfolds. It emerges organically through feedback from the customer. Joe Barron Design, regarding the selling and negotiating chapter, is there any way around the sales cycle? Some potential clients would like to know right away what the costs for the project two would be, and I feel I should respond immediately, and it seems like the process is a bit lengthy. Is there any way to tell them in a timely manner for you to write down a proposal, or would their impatient attitude be considered a warning as a bad customer? What would you say is a good amount of time to contact them with the proposal? Okay, so yes. I think I talk about this in the Busters chapter. People that are rushing me is absolutely a red flag, and I really worry about customers that are trying to put the screws to me in terms of speed. It signifies a certain lack of preparedness, adequate timeline to get the job done properly, etc. So I have historically found that people that are rushing me are trouble clients. So yes to that. 2, I think you can start to give people ballparks. Again, I like to talk money really fast. So, in that very first conversation, if they're like, this is what I'm trying to do here, I don't mind starting to give them some dollar figures, because if they can't afford me, then I want to scare them off right away. There's no point in spending 2 or 3 days typing up a proposal if they can't afford my services. And so I think having a ballpark cost conversation early on can help you, quickly eliminate those people, or at least give them enough information that they'll decide whether or not they want to wait for your proposal. And if they're really, really, I would also say this about that. I won't give people numbers if I'm uncomfortable. I will tell people, sometimes giving numbers right out of the gate in the middle of a meeting only because I'm feeling pressured to, I'll give bad numbers. So I don't mind telling someone, let me go back to my office, talk to my team, I'll get you some numbers back today, And again, these are rough. These are ballparks. But sometimes I just feel like I need that moment to sit down at my desk and really consider what they've asked me to do. Because if you're right there in the middle of a meeting and you're, getting answers to some questions, you can just blurt out some stuff without really thinking it through, and you can give some really bad numbers. Now, after that, after you have, given them these quick ballparks, if they're still pressing you, like, I need to have that proposal out like tomorrow, then I would then push back. I would say, look, it takes us this amount of time to adequately sit down and think through your project. I can hammer some numbers out for you, but they're not going to be accurate. And I don't want to come back halfway through your project and have to tell you that I miscalculated what this thing's going to cost and I've got to, charge you another $5,000. There's a reason why we spend a lot of time thinking through and asking a lot of questions before we start a project, because GoMedia holds itself to its proposal dollar amounts, and we communicate that to our customers so that they appreciate the fact that when you get a proposal from us, when there's a dollar figure on there, you're going to be able to trust that dollar figure, and we're not going to, charge you more money for our services. That, you're guaranteed that price is going to be accurate, but you're going to have to work with us in this proposal writing process because we're going to have a lot of questions for you. You're going to need to supply us with a lot of information. We've got to really vet this thing down until we know exactly what we're doing for you. So, yeah. S.Seidel. Question for client/money communication. Have you ever had an issue where your initial quote for time and or budget on a project was not enough? And if so, how would you suggest to approach such a situation? We have a very particular strategy that we follow, which is communicate early and often, which is very hard to do. To some degree, if you messed up, if the customer gave you all the information you should need to put together a proposal and you simply misquoted the hours and that the client is not changing the scope on you, but you just messed up, to some degree, I hold myself responsible, I hold GoMedia responsible, and eat hours. We will eat hours. I've heard this a lot. And this is why you need to get better and better at quoting, and this is why you need to get better and better at asking questions and figuring out what you're going to do, because, you can't afford to make those kinds of mistakes. So don't make the mistake, first of all. If you do, hold yourself accountable. In a situation where it's a little bit gray, where maybe there hasn't been huge scope creep, but maybe the client's been, making little changes, or they've been very difficult in approving your work, we use this approach. We give a little and we ask for a little. So we will eat hours for a little while. If, for instance, it's a $5,000 project, and we have worked to the point where we've done $6,000 worth of work, I'll tell the customer we'll eat $500 and ask them to pay an extra $500. So I want to make sure they understand that, we've done the work that they've asked, we've gone above and beyond, we've eaten a bunch of hours, and we're asking for a little bit of help. And, it's a case-by-case scenario. It's something that you've got to, it's something you've got to work with with your customer. Please talk about how he fires a problem client. This is from Stephanie. One of two ways, and it depends on how you how bad of a client they are. We either dramatically increase their rates, so we just try and charge them a freaking ton, which if they bite on and they're a bad client, sometimes isn't the worst thing in the world because we're making a ton of money off of them. But a lot of times that will simply to scare the customer off. It's a way of firing them without having to tell them we're not going to work with you anymore. The other way is to simply say that we're booked. We'll say we're booked for 6 months. Most clients, if they can't get you on board on a project for 6 months, they're going to go find someone else to get it done. it's only very, very rare. We don't like to burn bridges, and we're not going to just badmouth a client, but there are extreme cases when someone acts completely outlandish and disrespectful to our staff. In that case, I'll tell a customer, you're a fucking ass and we're not going to deal with you. So, that's that, basically. So I wanted to, it looks like we're pretty much out of time. This is my first webinar. I hope everyone had a good time, and I hope I hope I was helpful. And it's a little weird, you guys can all see me and I'm staring at a little camera here. So I just want to thank everyone that joined us today. We're thinking about possibly doing this again in a month, maybe a 1-hour reconnect, with anyone that wants to jump on and ask more questions. You guys should let us know if that's something that you're interested in. You can email us or leave comments on the website. And if anyone's got any real specific questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Feel free to shoot me an email. My email is bill@gomedia.us. And please support Go Media by purchasing our wonderful products. We truly appreciate everyone's support and hope everyone is, getting wonderful things out of the things that we produce for them. A question that Philip sent, and he basically asks, how do we come up with our ideas? I'm assuming design ideas, but those could also be business ideas or anything else. I've never really felt like I was in short supply for ideas. If anything, I've traditionally felt like I always have too many ideas to have the time or money to really execute on. However, I would say that I definitely find that a lot of ideas pop into my brain while I'm going through the sales process. So, I think traditionally you think of yourself as selling, sitting down, coming up with the idea, and then designing. What actually happens for me is I sit down to get to know the customer and to find out about the project, and it's at those moments when I'm sitting there having those extended discovery meetings and working on the proposal for a customer that ideas are really popping into my brain. So, one recommendation that I would make is ask lots of questions, more questions than you probably even need. I think that the more you know about a project, know about a company, know about a company's history, the more resources you have and the more context you have, that will allow your brain to come up with ideas. So, I'm a naturally curious person. I love finding out about other people's businesses. I love understanding the ins and outs and the history and the business model and, everything about a company. So, I just spend a lot of time in that discovery phase asking lots of questions, partially because I wanted to be able to estimate the project accurately, but then I'm also trying to become an advisor. One thing I talk about in my book is be an advisor, not an order taker. I think this is a sort of a common business principle that if you want to create value to your customer, you don't just give them what they ask for, but ask lots of questions and then, provide more information and more feedback than they're even asking for. So I just think that the more you know, the easier ideas will pop into your brain. So when you're in those meetings and you're finding out about the project, if you've got any sparks that run through your brain, at that minute, jot them down in a notebook and then present them back to them in your proposal. So I do this a lot. We'll have a little section where it's ideas, it goes in the proposal, and those cool little fun ideas that I come up with while I'm learning about their company, I'll put in the proposal and pitch it like, here's what we're going to do for you. Here's this amazing idea. Another thing is to just take breaks. I think that sometimes you've got to start a project even if you don't have a great idea. There's a lot of collateral work that can be done on design projects before you actually do it. You may not have a good idea for the design, but you may know what the specs are on the project. So you can start by setting up your folders. You can start by setting up your Photoshop or Illustrator document. You can create guides, where are your folds, where's your whatever. Get in the process of pulling together the resources for a project. And then take a break. So try and get your brain thinking about it, then stop, do something else. I do think there is something that's happening subconsciously when you leave things alone and turn your brain off. Suddenly creativity sort of, pours out. I know that a lot of people talk about getting great ideas when they're driving. I get the exact same experience. Something about getting in your car, turning your brain off and just hitting the road, and not having to think of a cool idea will suddenly allow your brain to just open up, and suddenly ideas start popping into your brain. So I think that's, something where if I'm struggling on something, sometimes just giving it a rest if you've got the time, sleep on it, push it back a day, whatever, see if creative ideas pop into your brain. Now, occasionally, we do have to come up with ideas, and we've got to do it on a deadline, and there's no time for me to just sit around waiting for my brain to sort of have a, spark of inspiration. So we will have company brainstorming sessions. We'll grab 3 or 4 designers, sometimes the sales staff. We'll go into our conference room. We'll get out Post-it notes, and we'll just start jotting down the most ridiculous things. We'll try and think of anything associated to the project. We'll just throw weird and crazy ideas out there, and then we'll just work those ideas. We'll just talk them through. We'll kick it back and forth. We just, as a group, just sort of like brainstorm stuff. And, gosh, I guess those would be my 3 main things is make sure you're asking enough questions, take breaks from the project, and then sometimes you just got to pull people in and just sit down and have a jam session.
All right, this one's from Dwayne. He says, how does one, as a freelancer, stand out against larger firms and agencies? He just purchased the book this morning, so he's looking forward to the pieces that are on the proposal.
Okay. There are distinct advantages to being a freelancer or being a small shop. Obviously, your overhead is very low. You can compete dramatically on price. The challenge you're going to face is that as a, one-man shop is that, and I had some notes actually to talk about this, is confidence in the fact that you're going to be there, that you're going to follow through, that you're going to be professional. So they might go, great, he's a third the cost of the bigger company, but can I trust him? So I think you have to work really hard to overcome that concern when you're coming in at a much lower price point. I also believe that you have a unique opportunity to really specialize. And, the bigger firms get, the more services they have to offer. The more services they offer, the weaker their pitch becomes to a specific service type. So, you can really hone in on a particular industry and a particular product and a particular service and just crush it. Just make yourself all about that one thing so that when they're like large firm A that has 20 different things they do versus Dwayne who does one freaking thing really well, you're going to win there. Also, being a one-man shop, you're going to be, single point of contact with your customer. You can say, I'm selling to you, but you're going to work with me. You see the work that's in my portfolio. I did that. I'm not outsourcing this, to some other artist or designer. I'm going to sit with you. I'm going to do the work. I'm going to deliver it to you. You're going to pay me. So, and then a lot of standing out is, really not so much even about small versus large, but just standard branding and messaging practices that any good, strong company are going to do. Having rock solid branding, having a really good, voice and persona behind your brand, the professionalism that I talked about. And, yeah. Okay. Hopefully that answers your question.
All right. Why not just hop right into personal branding? I know that was something you want to talk about today.
Sure. So, it was kind of funny. So last webinar, someone took a side shot of me and, I was wearing my sweater vest and my white shirt, but my pants, I was wearing these Adidas running pants, and that image was posted on Facebook, and a few people thought that was kind of funny that I was wearing with a dress shirt and a sweater vest and, Adidas running pants. And, it was sort of like, what's going on here? Like, what is this outfit that this guy is wearing? And so I wanted to sort of explain a little bit. So about 2 or 3, maybe 4 years ago, I read this great article on your brand persona, and the case study that they did was of the Smashing Pumpkins. So the Smashing Pumpkins were a rock band that had been around for many years, and they basically had the Smashing Pumpkins sound. They were touring a lot. They were doing everything to, be a successful band, but for whatever reason, they just were not catching on. And so someone came along and said, I can't remember the gentleman's name, but basically someone went to Billy Corgan and said, you've got a great sound, but your look to your band is kind of a little bit weak, like you got to have a persona, you got to have a personality, you got to have something that people will cling to, that they'll aspire to, that they'll think is cool. And so Billy Corgan shaved his head and he put on this t-shirt that said 0 on it, and next thing you know, the band takes off. And this whole article just talked about establishing a persona for yourself. And I thought that was awesome. I thought that was such a cool idea. And I started to think about, who am I? Who is William A. Beachy? And, I think that if you ask a question like, who am I? Anyone is such a diverse group of things, and the personalities are so complex that you really can't hone it down into one little stereotypical look or whatever. But if you're trying to sell your company, or if you're trying to sell yourself as a band, or if you're trying to sell your persona as a leader, there are advantages to branding yourself. Not just a logo and a name, but how you dress, So I actually cognitively went out and decided that I was going to create the Bill Beachy brand. And so I spent probably 2 or 3 months, bouncing around, shopping, trying on different outfits, trying to decide, what is the Bill Beachy brand? Who am I? What do I look like? And I kind of really I've always liked sweater vests. I was a fan of Jim Tressel, a former coach of the Ohio State Buckeyes. He always wore sweater vests. And I wanted to come across a little intellectual, professional, business, but, still, kind of rock and roll. I've got a big goatee and dark features. So as I went through this process of trying on these different outfits, the sweater vest and this white shirt I felt, it just really personified who I felt like I was, or at least who I wanted to be. And so that was it. And so I decided then, whenever I was in public at a speaking engagement, or when I was being photographed for, profile picture, for my profile picture on our website, on a webinar, for the book, whatever it is, that this was going to be my uniform, that I was going to wear this so that people could identify me, that they had a visual cue to say, that's Bill Beachy. He's the guy with the white shirt and the black sweater vest on. And, Einstein always wore the exact same suit. Steve Jobs always wore the exact same shirt. And, bands do this all the time. Kiss is probably one of the more famous bands for having costumes that really personified who they were. And, people will actually question, how good Kiss's music was, but they did an amazing job of branding themselves and putting this persona out there. So when you're selling yourself and you're selling your company, you're selling your design services, try to think about, who is this persona of your company? It's not just, hey, we do logos. Are you the rock and roll shop? Are you going to be wearing black leather and, have tattoos and, long hair and, you're going to really personify your company brand, and your art style is, really, tough and rock and roll? Or if you're pitching to larger corporations and they're spending more money on you, having that brand persona might be a little bit too, unreliable from their perspective. They might want someone in a suit and a tie. So for some people, their company persona might be, someone in a 3-piece suit and, nice polished shoes and cufflinks and all the rest of it. You have to decide what your brand persona is going to be, and then you need to learn how to embody that. I remember I had a client once, and once in a while I'll shave my goatee off just because it kind of gets annoying and I want to get a clean start. And I had shaved my goatee, and I go meet with a longtime customer of mine, and he's like, "What did you do? Grow your goatee back, man. I'm not hiring a clean corporate guy. I want the artist, So being an artist and having a goatee was part of my persona. It was one of the reasons why he hired me. We actually just landed a pretty big gig with a local government agency, but it was an agency within the government that deals with a lot of kids. They wanted artists, and when we went in and pitch ourselves, we talked a lot about us being artists. And it doesn't hurt that we go in with non-traditional clothing and, me having a goatee. In fact, this outfit that I'm wearing for you is not exactly the same outfit that I wear for my sales calls. So I have a slightly different costume, if you will. It's just the clothes that I wear when I go out on design service sales calls. I think I dress a little bit more hipstery than I do with this particular uniform on. So think it's easy to think through your company and be like, well, we want a nice website and we want this brand. And certainly I think most people out there are graphic designers. So they're thinking very much visually about the graphic design elements that they're creating. But there is this visual persona that goes beyond just your branding. I mean, there's this personality, and, one way to think of it is, you're an actor in a movie. So who is your character? What character are you playing? What is that character wearing? What do they sound like? Create that persona and then push that persona across all of your touch points with your customers. And some of that is also your written voice. So as graphic designers, I don't think we think so much about how we type, like what are the words that we use? What is our personality when we're writing our copy for our marketing materials? You can write, C-level type copy. This is sort of stuff that appeals to, Fortune 1000 corporate level executives, or you can write sort of fun, campy, fun stuff like MailChimp has got great copy. It's really silly. It's kind of fun, but it's very user friendly, and it speaks to a certain type of person. So, so think about those things. And so related to this is, building customer confidence. And, you've got to dress for success. So if you're having an engagement with a customer and the project is $500 and they see a couple items in your portfolio, they'll go, okay, not big risk. I met this guy, trust him, I'll have him do this work. But as your firm grows and as you get bigger and, bigger customers with larger and larger projects, a question that comes up to Go Media regularly these days is we're sending out, $10, $20, $30, $40, $50, $60,000 up proposals is, are you going to be around? Are you going to be around to support this website you're about to build for us 5 years from now? You need to instill confidence in your customers that, not only are you going to do a good job, but you're going to be around to support that work. So for Go Media, I can say, well, I've been doing this since 1997. It's 15 years I've been building this. We own our own building on Lorraine Avenue. We just invested almost $50,000 in a storefront renovation. We've got a brand new sign, and I just hired 2 new employees. So we're not going anywhere. I've got a great case to make for why they can trust that this company's not going anywhere. And in fact, we're growing. So, you need to figure out how to instill that confidence in your customers. You might not have that lineage and that sort of, overwhelming, catalog of evidence to convince your potential customers that, you're not going anywhere. So, this starts with the way you dress. I mean, I've got vendors that are, videographers that we hire regularly, and they look like a bunch of high school skateboarders. And that's fine because we've gotten to know them. We've built up trust in them, and they do great work. But periodically, if I'm selling to a larger company and I have to make a recommendation for a video crew, it's very hard for me to suggest them because I know that they look like a bunch of high school skaters, and they're going to walk into that meeting, and my big customer is going to go, "Whoa, who are these guys? These don't seem like someone I can trust." So, you've got to learn how to build confidence. And it doesn't mean selling out. It doesn't mean that if I'm not a suit and tie kind of guy that I'm going to force myself into that, because you've got to be genuine. You've got to be passionate about who you are and how you dress. But at the same token, just be aware that, how you dress and how you act and the words that you use all will influence a customer. And, they're more likely to hire you if they trust you and if they, see lots of evidence that you're going to be able to be professional and follow through. Because that's a major concern when hiring creatives is, are they going to hit their deadlines? Are they going to come in on budget? Are they going to stick around and support this, a year from now, 2 years from now? And dressing is part of that, and so is everything else. So, did I see a question pop up, Brian?
All right, so this is from Philip in the live chat, and he says, when doing web design, how much do you go into user experience and usability, and how? So basically, how much time do we spend on coming up with ideas and personas, wireframes, prototypes, that sort of thing?
So every project starts with information architecture, and that literally starts as just a typewritten list of pages. Anything that is significant in terms of designer development that would fall into the categories of functionality or content, we will also list those items out in our information architecture or typewritten sitemap for the website that we're going to build. And that frequently can take a lot of time just figuring out how to categorize and where to put all the content. Once that's done, Brian will frequently do this work, is we will create a visual sitemap of that. It's just taking that written sitemap and taking it one step further. It allows us to just sort of help visualize where all this content is going in terms of categorization. And those are usually large buckets that are the main navigation and then sub-navs. Most of the work GoMedia does is not user experience intensive. And what I mean by that is we're doing a lot of traditional web page and content layout stuff. So I really think that user experience exploration becomes very intensive when you're developing a totally new experience that people haven't had before, that you don't build regularly. And that requires, lots of iterations and testing in order to figure that out. So an example might be, we did a project for Cardinal Commerce. They wanted a web app. It was like a financial thing where you could go in and do some planning and read some reports and stuff. And it was an app for an iPad. And this was just kind of a very new thing. And so there was a lot of sketching and a lot of iterations and a lot of exploration. I would say that on an average web development that GoMedia is doing, it's not that extensive. It's not to say that we don't think about it. And certainly there are certain sections and pages where we do actually work up sketches for how the user experience is going to be. And we'll, do a little sketch and go, well, they click this button and then it'll move on to that button. I think we did this very, very, very roughly with a recent campaign that we did with Cozy, cozy.org/warm and bright. We had to figure out what are the 3 or 4 steps that a user would go through as they shared this campaign on their social media feeds. But we just do so many of the same things, homepage, landing page, informational landing pages, informational pages generally, contact form. We have just built so many of these that we have sort of figured out what the best user experience is. So we're not having to invest so much of that, on a project by project basis. I don't know, Brian, do you want to chime in here? You work on our wireframes and stuff.
Sure. Yeah. I think for more, just a majority of what we're doing, it's more or less, let's prioritize the content. So hopefully at the beginning of the project, we do have that content available. And then at that point, we're just trying to organize it in a way, obviously the homepage is going to have, maybe a slider, or maybe it's going to have 3 call to action, areas. And it's just a matter of what is the main purpose of the website? Is it just a general brochure where you want the user to be able to find out what your about information is, how to contact you, that sort of thing? Is that important? Or is the important stuff like product information, especially for, shopping carts, where the homepage is very intensive, as far as getting that product information out. So it kind of varies, but for the most part, you're right. With what we do, it's more of, less intensive. It's here is the content we have available and we want to provide for our users. How can we prioritize that so when, the user is going through, the general F pattern, that they're seeing the right information in the right order, which is also helpful now that we're doing more responsive stuff. So now that we've, with responsive web design, we still want to be able to prioritize so that, if the user is on desktop, they're seeing it one way, but they're still accessing the same information in the same order as a smaller mobile device.
And I would say that on the far end of the spectrum, I have visited extremely large design firms that literally have, user testing rooms that are full of computers, and they will actually mock up working versions of websites. They will put people in those rooms to actually use it. They're tracking eye movement. They're tracking where they're clicking. They've got a one-way mirror where they've got a team of developers that are watching them use the actual website they've built. They got another glass wall, and then they've got the customers watching the, usability, crew watching the users. I mean, I've seen some amazing things. There's firms out there that are doing incredible, user testing, and, there are websites where you can upload designs and have users go in and test them, and you can actually pay per person that you have go in and test those. And I know we've got some. I can post. We can post some links. Would you take a note, Brian? Post some links. There's a couple different sites. We haven't used them very often, but they're out there. So that is on one end of the spectrum. Just to reiterate what our sort of common every project steps is every web development project typically gets a written sitemap, a visual sitemap, wireframes, and then we go into designing. And that is typically enough steps that we've pretty much figured out what it is that we're going to do when we get to the design phase, and have fewer hiccups down the line as we're developing.
And just real quick to kind of clarify, wireframes mean different things for different people. Sometimes just static designs that you do in Photoshop or in Google Drive, or a graphics type program where you're just putting boxes in different places. We do, it's not really wireframing. I guess it's more of a prototyping. So it's not a full, it's basically a combination of wireframes and prototyping, where we still have the boxes, but it's a working HTML version, so you can see how things are moving, especially for responsive. You can click through to different pages, and the site is it's pretty much functional. It's still static. It's not always showing content, but it's something that the client can see and be able to view in their browser, and get involved in the entire experience of how all that information is going to work prior to us going into designs.
And then in terms of actually getting into that design phase, so once those wireframes are done and the designers have a sense of, what content's going on the page, what the priority is, what the size of the items are, we typically do in a first round we will do a home page and one key interior page. So we've picked 2 actual pages that we're going to design. We then usually have 2 to 4 designers creating anywhere from 2 to 4 designs of each of those. So when we post proofs, they're getting, 2 to 4 distinct visual ideas, and that idea designed over a home page and one interior page. And then we get feedback from the customer, and we work back and forth on those 2 key pages, the home page and one interior page, until they feel like, yes, that is communicating the look and feel that I'm after. I'm excited about that design. We will then start applying that design motif to all the rest of the interior pages. So, taking it one step further, that's usually the next step, is applying that design.
Real quick, just before we continue, obviously everyone who is watching here live and answering questions, it's drawntobusiness.com. That's more information of the book, how to obtain a copy, as well as how to get in contact with us if you have any other questions. And if you're still not sure if you want the book, there's definitely ability to get in contact with us, find out what other people are saying in the comments area, and also you can just see what is all available as far as all of these different tiers that we have available as far as the packages go. So, Bill, do you want to go into that real quick, just to give a brief rundown of what those packages are?
Sure. So we initially launched the book, and the book is absolutely the centerpiece of this whole thing. I mean, the wisdom that is contained in the book is, 15 years of me building Go Media, going through all the pain and suffering of starting your first business, learning all of the business lessons, learning all of the design firm specific stuff, and me just doing a brain dump of all of these things. And I write the book in sort of an autobiographical sort of way. There's a lot of, storyline about me, but inherent in all those stories is this wisdom about how to be a more successful freelancer, start to build a design firm, grow a design firm, manage people, all the things you might need to do as a, middle manager, of a design team, if that's your situation. And then I marry that with really on the streets practical advice. So I didn't want to just tell a story and not say, okay, and here's the exact piece of software I use, because whenever I read business books, which I do all the time, I love them. I love business biographies. I'm always like, great, I hear this wonderful story about how he turned the company around, and generally he did this, but I want to know the specifics. How many people did he hire? What software did he use? How much money did he invest? I love those details. So I made sure to pour all of those details into my book. And then the other thing I did was I went out and interviewed owners of other design firms, firms that I knew and wanted to learn from because they were having great success. And so I put together a 77-question questionnaire, which was overwhelming. A number of people I contacted got about a third of the way through it and stopped because they just didn't have the time. But I interviewed all these companies, and I read through all these answers, and everything that I was reading was just reinforcing what I had put into my book, basically. And so I've got all these great quotes, and I have included those in the book as well. So you've got my experience, and you've got like 14 other design firm owners' experience, plus our accountant, which asked to remain anonymous because he's got plenty of work, and Sharon Torek of Torek Licata, a legal firm that specializes in intellectual property and creative firms. So I did a long interview with her. So I wanted to get some of that, legal stuff that is also very hard to find. When you're first getting started, starting your business, it can be brutal. Just like, what do I need to do to be legal? Do I need to have a license? What kind of taxes do I pay? Where do I pay them? All these sorts of things, I wanted to answer in the book. So I really pushed to get all those answers in the book, married with my sort of anecdotal stories of all the pain and suffering that I've been through. So that's the book. So start there. If nothing else, get that book. You can either get a hard copy of the book, or you can get the ebook, which is a little cheaper if you want that. The Plus package. So obviously when you're first getting started, this is great that I've sort of brought some of this stuff up in the book, but wouldn't it be wonderful if I had documents that would help me write a business plan, or, quick tips on how to land projects or quick tips on how to negotiate. And so the Plus package has the book plus 20 PDFs and templates, 6 bonus videos. Some of those are, those are all me sort of giving you tidbits of information on being a better freelancer or small business owner. And you get the paperback and you get the actual physical paper edition, which is really great. It's full of art. I think that everyone that gets it will really enjoy it. And then the Pro package, it's everything that's in the Plus package. Plus you get the Threads Not Dead ebook. You get our freelance survival kit, which has, some legal documents, discovery questionnaires, proposal template, and then we have also included 3 additional design-related video tutorials. So those are the packages: ebook, paperback, Plus package, and Pro package. You can read all of this on Drawn to Business. I'm here. I didn't want this webinar to become a sales pitch, but since you asked, Brian, I went ahead and filled it in. So if people have questions on anything, please feel free to send us questions. I'm here to answer. That's what I'm here for. So I would like to chat a little bit about recruiting workers and volunteers. So, I had a close friend that's starting her art-related business recently come to me, and she was talking through her business model, and she was talking through her struggles, and she had a bunch of questions for me. And at one point, it came up that she really needed help, and she really needed some workers, and she said she couldn't afford them. And I said, well, what do you need done, and how much are people demanding that you pay them, And she kind of was like, well, I haven't even asked. I haven't even tried to get anyone to help me because, I can't afford to pay them. I'm like, well, how do you even know what they want or what it's going to cost to get help? And she sort of gave me some numbers that were just, what she thought the going rate were for employees in this particular field. And, when I was starting Go Media, I had that same perspective that in order for me to get anyone to help, in order for me to get anyone to work with me, I had to basically have a textbook definition of a job based on some, perceived, corporate, flow chart of, employee structure. And along with that particular job title, there was a acceptable price range of what you had to pay that person. And if you couldn't afford that, then there would be no way to get an employee or to get someone to help you build your business. And I was very scared to even ask people if they'd be willing to help me with my business. I was very scared to ask them to work for what I perceived for below what I perceived to be, the standard for pricing, for paying people. And, so I spent a long time like that. And then when I did hire people in that first round, I overpaid them. I paid wages that were well beyond what I could actually afford because I perceived that that's what I had to pay them. And I quickly found myself losing money. And within about 6 months of hiring this person that I agreed to pay more than I knew I could probably afford, I had to let them go because I was broke again. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, don't be afraid to sell your vision. Don't be afraid to try and ask people to volunteer. I read a great story once about a gentleman, I think this was over in the UK. He started a business. He had a vision for the business. He had a great business plan. He knew how to go out and sell. And what the business did was build countertops for kitchens. And his first 9 employees that he brought into the firm, he said, I am not going to be able to pay you for the first 6 months that you are here working for me. But I think this is going to be a very successful company. I want you to come on board. You're going to be on the ground floor of this new company. And I promise you that if you come work for me, if it works, you will be rewarded. And of course I will pay you for this first 6 months, but it's just going to have to happen later. And he was able to convince 9 people to come on board and work like dogs, building countertops to help him get his company off the ground and running. And he did become successful. He became very successful. And years later, after the company was up and running and grew very large, he sold the company for many, many millions of dollars. And he actually gave each one of those 9 employees a check for $1 million apiece for having the confidence and coming on that first 6 months and working without pay. When I was starting Go Media, I was so unconfident about what this thing was going to become, and I am so loyal and so beholden to making sure that I'm following through on my promises that I basically wouldn't promise anyone anything because I was afraid to. I was afraid to sell people on the vision of what Go Media could become because I just didn't trust it. And it took me about 8, 9, 10 years before I finally reached a point where I was confident enough to tell someone, hey, that we're going to build a great company here. This is going to be awesome. Things are going to go well. The money's going to come. We're going to figure it out. And when we do, everyone's going to get not only a great place to work, but they're going to get great pay. So, as soon as I started doing that, people really started jumping on board. And, if you look at something like Weapons of Mass Creation Fest, which is the design conference we throw, we couldn't even throw that without volunteers. But it's an amazing thing. It's highly inspirational. All of these artists come together. It's something that people want to be a part of. And so we ask for volunteers, and we get tons of volunteers every single year that come out and support that event. So I think that when you're small and you're getting started, you have to tell yourself that, as long as I promise myself that I'm going to follow through on this and I'm going to work as hard as I can to build this thing right, then you shouldn't feel bad about recruiting volunteers or recruiting staff, even if it's below what you would like to be able to pay them, so long as you are a person of your word and you follow through and you work hard for their benefit. And, you will find that people will get on board. They will jump on your company. They will help you out, whether that's just with taking a slightly lower pay to work with you or be a volunteer or, whatever it might be, because, people care more about, people want more out of their job than just high pay. At the end of the day, life is not just about making a lot of money. In fact, a lot of people that make a lot of money are really miserable. You need to give them a livable wage, but if you sell a vision and you give them a plan and you give them a timeline and you bust your butt and they can see that you're working hard to build your company, then people will stick with you and they'll help you grow your business. So, don't be afraid to sell the vision of what you're building. Get people on board and, accept their help. Don't be afraid to let people around you help grow your business. Obviously, when you're successful, pay it forward, etc.
Yeah, and it's also good to be transparent, about what it's going to take to get to the point where we're all financially healthy, or that we are at a point where this is deemed successful. For me, not Go Media related, but I've got a community blog that I run, and the goal is to be financially stable, to have that blog sell enough ads or, bring enough enough sponsors to make it worthwhile for everyone, so that all the writers get paid, and we all are bringing in something for the work we're doing. So sell the vision, but be transparent of what it's actually going to take to get to the point where we're all getting out of it what we are putting into it, kind of thing as well.
Yeah, and I also try to be very upfront too about what the realities of today are. It's okay to say, here's what I'm promising you now. This is what I know we can do, and the next step is where we're going. Now, did you guys have a time frame that you put on it, Brian, that you sort of mapped out where you thought your growth needed to be and where the revenues would then come in over the course of 3 or 5 years?
Yeah, realistically, our hope is not to have that take that long.
You're like, 6 months, guys. Come on, jump on board. Let's go.
But we knew it was going to take at least a year to get to the point where we could take a step back and assess, where we are. So yeah, we did have a long-term goal. We knew after our research what it was going to take to start, because we are doing ad sales, what it was going to take for those ad sales, whether it's Google ads or buy-sell ads or whatever we're doing, to actually start, turning up money that we could actually hand out, kind of thing. But as far as time frame, we really didn't know. We're learning on the job, just like most entrepreneurs are, and most startups are.
Mm-hmm. I noticed that we had a viewer ask about upgrading if they bought the ebook and they wanted the physical book.
Correct.
Yeah, please send Jeff at gomedia.us an email. He can set a coupon code up for you so that you can upgrade. If you've got an ebook and you want the physical book, I highly recommend the physical book. It's great. We make more money on the ebook, but the physical book, it's just got a great feel to it, and it's really easier to read. I also noticed Philip asked about, he said he's a freelancer. He's never really thought about building a firm, and, what does it take to do that? And I think the biggest thing is just your mental perception of what you're going to do and what you want to be. I started with no business education, freelancing on my own, and have built a firm. So, if you are of the mindset that I'm a freelancer and you work and you've got some profit at the end of the year, your perception might be, well, great, I've got extra money, I can go buy that wave runner that I've always wanted. If you want to build a design firm, your perception of what you're trying to get out of life needs to shift. And if part of that is, hey, I want to build a design firm, maybe now that profit that you came away with on your freelancing gig is not going to be poured into a wave runner, but you're going to have to, put that money into buying new equipment and another desk, and then using that money to help you go out and find an employee to start, working with you. And there are shortcuts, but my general process was very organic. It was one project, $1 of profit, $1 reinvested back in the company. Started with, me, hired employees, went broke, fired the employees, went back to work, saved up money, hired more employees. I did that about four times or so before I finally figured out how to sell at the right price and how to hire an employee at the right dollar figure that I could actually keep the whole thing running. I can remember distinctly the end of that first year where I had an employee for a whole year and hadn't had to fire them. I was like, success! I actually kept an employee for an entire year and I still have as much money in the bank account as I started. So, and you just do that one day at a time. They talk about the growth mindset. When I went through a lot of my business courses and stuff, they say businesses tend to fall into these different categories, and you've got people that have a mature business and they're not really trying to grow it. They're just running it and they're making their money. If you are a freelancer, you're kind of in that place. It doesn't take much to set up. If you've got enough business to keep yourself busy, great. You're basically in a mature place where you're working, you're making your annual, income, whatever you want that to be, and you're content and you just maintain that. As soon as you want to, build a design firm, you've got to shift that mental set to growth mentality. How do I pour my profits back into the business to create more business? And, there's wonderful, amazing rewards that come along with that. But as I outline in my book, there's also a lot of things that you have to deal with in starting your own firm. It's a very different animal than just working as a freelancer. I mean, there's absolutely a ton of overlap in terms of the knowledge that's in my book, that is extremely useful. That's going to make you a way better freelancer if you adopt some of the principles and tactics that I use. But if you wanted to start a firm, which I of course chose to do, you're going to have a whole other pile of challenges ahead of you. So,
for more information about Go Media and the work we do, you can check out gomedia.us. And we'd love to hear what you think about this podcast, as well as what you'd like to hear in upcoming episodes in 2014. You can tweet us at go_media, post on our Facebook wall, or send an email to podcast@gomedia.us. For Jeff, Bill, and everyone else who has been so patient in the office, thank you so much. It's been a great year. We're looking forward to 2014. See you then. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas.